Hello and welcome to episode 80 of This Week in Germany. We'll be bringing the world to Germany and Germany to the world with the news for the week beginning the 13th of July 2015. With me, Daniel.
And me, Rob. Each week we feature stories from the news, society, and culture in the English language. If you want ways to find out more, including ways to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, head over to our website, thisweekingermany.de. I read an interesting article this week that is saying that East Germany's not doing too well, and maybe people don't like to live here that much.
Oh, well, you live in East Germany, so how is it for you?
I like East Germany. I really liked my time when I was in Leipzig, and the town that I'm in now is a little bit smaller, so we might not actually be staying here for forever. We are planning on staying in Germany, but we might be moving out of East Germany as well. And so are a lot of other people. I'm going to be talking about later in the news and brief about how a lot of people are going to be moving out. A big part of the population are going to be moving from East Germany into West Germany.
Very, very interesting. And that's despite all of the support that East Germany has been getting from the state to develop, to kind of catch up with the West. And they have caught up a bit, but it still seems to not quite be enough. So what else do we have coming up in the program today?
Well, the destination is going to be quite interesting. We're going to Hamburg to look at one of UNESCO's new World Heritage sites.
Which is the Speicherstadt, right?
That is correct.
What is the Speicherstadt? If you could just give us a quick overview.
It's the warehouse district. So just think about it as like these huge warehouses. And because you're in Hamburg, it is right on the waterfront, so it is beautiful. And they're making that it's still used as warehouses, but they're also turning it into kind of a tourist attraction too. So a lot of people are going to Hamburg to see this, and I'm going to tell you all about it.
Cool. Also this week, the Alternative for Deutschland party, the AfD, which is like a right-wing party, not extremist or anything like that, but certainly seem very Eurosceptical as well. They have had a complete turmoil in their leadership, and we'll be finding out about that later in the program. And also, we have very interesting Germans of the week this week.
Yeah, the Germans of the week this week are pretty much heroes. It was in Bavaria. There was a rampaging shooter, and these three helped take him down. So he did not hurt anyone else, and I will tell you about that later in the show as well.
Okay, but first we're going to talk about Greece. Greece has been in the news non-stop recently. While the background is complicated, in the end it comes down to one question. Can Greece stay in the euro? On the one hand, staying in the euro allows Greece to enjoy economic stability backed up by most of the EU. On the other, the country would be financially independent if it ran its own currency.
Yeah, but that's Greece. Where does Germany come into all of this?
Well, basically, Greece owes the largest proportion of the money that it borrowed to Germany. I think that's 56 billion euros out of a total bailout that it got, which was 240 billion. So Germany has a lot invested in Greece at the moment, let's put it that way. And also, Germany has a lot of influence in the European Union when it comes to monetary policy. So the running of the European Central Bank, that's the bank which controls everything that happens with the euro. And also, Germany has the largest current account in Europe. Basically, it has the most cash. So it's a very, economically powerful country as well. In an earlier episode, we spoke with the Tagesspiegel's Elisa Simantka about Germany and Greece, and here's what she had to say.
Germany is one of the architects of this whole idea that you have to cut down spendings when you want to get out of a crisis. There are other economical ideas where you say, no, if you cut down the wages at the same time when economy is struggling, you don't have any demand from inside the country. When you already don't have a big demand from outside the country, then you might get into even bigger struggle. And that's not even a very Greek point of view, but maybe more of an Anglo-Saxon idea of economy. But yes, in Germany, economists and especially the finance ministry is very sure that the other way is the right thing. Debts are something bad, and you need to cut down everything, and you have to save a lot of money from the spendings, and then at the end, if everyone is behaving like Germany did, they will be totally successful at the end. And the other reason, I'm sure, is like the German-Greek history, starting from a war to very close relationships in the history. So you always had this huge emotional attachment between Germany and Greece, which we were talking about, I guess, already in our last podcast, which makes the whole discussion in a way personalized, though you have in the region a battle between two economical ideas, as I would phrase it.
How about Wolfgang Schäuble? You see him in the news a lot. Does he have any sort of influence over the decision of what's going on in Greece?
Yes, he is the finance minister of Germany, and he is very influential because he is the finance minister of the most economically powerful country. Now, he's wanted Greece to exit the euro ever since this crisis first began, but Angela Merkel, who's the Chancellor of Germany, basically said if the European Union and the euro are bound together, and if one fails, the other fails. So she's basically saying that she wants to have a stable Europe in order to have a stable currency as well. So I think she wants Greece to stay in. So you can see there's a kind of a tension there. Also, perhaps Angela Merkel's biggest problem is within her own parliamentary group. So she's in this group called the CDU-CSU. And the CDU is the Conservative Party. But the CSU is Bavaria's kind of version of the Conservative Party, and as though they're in a union together. And they have wanted, the Bavarian strand of conservatism, have wanted to basically never wanted to have to go back to this Greece issue since the first bailout. Basically, they see it as absolutely crazy that we would keep giving them money. And so Wolfgang Schäuble is in the middle of this, and he has to then decide, essentially, does Germany want to continue lending money, or does it want to put the shutters down? And also, recently he said, in fact, he created a Grexit plan, which so many people criticized as being premature, as being presumptive of what's going to happen, and also an example that maybe Germany is trying to push Greece out of the euro. So it was quite controversial.
Well, he seemed to know what was going on ahead of time. Where does the Greek president stand on this and his party? Well,
the prime minister, Alexis Tsipras, his Syriza party is basically, the difficult thing here is that he called for a referendum, and the referendum happened, and the Greek people voted no to the reforms that the creditors, which are the IMF and the ECB and the Eurozone countries, saying no to the reforms that they demanded, which was essentially putting more austerity, more spending cuts, this kind of thing. So they voted no to that. And now Tsipras is basically going to have to accept even tougher reforms, because if he doesn't, then he's going to have to leave the euro, and then Greece will be very uncertain of its future. So he's going to have to go against the will of his people, which is a little bit unfortunate for what is an anti-austerity party. So it's going to be interesting to see where he can possibly make gains to not go back on his election promises here.
It's going to be tough.
It is. Well, it's already tough. It's going to be even tougher. Now, a decision is expected on Sunday. That's the Sunday that's just gone. We record this podcast on a Sunday. So by the time we publish this episode, the situation could have changed dramatically. But here's the important thing. Many European countries see Greece's story as a barometer of the success or failure of a united Europe. But in the end, you have to ask yourself, isn't the idea of you must pay your debts more of a moral one than a financial one? It seems like being indebted to the IMF, that's the International Monetary Fund, is equivalent to giving up part of your democracy. After all, if Tsipras wants to stay in the euro, he has to go against the will of the people shown in a recent referendum. Also, the IMF enforced debt collection on third world countries whose dictators took huge loans, and it was the people who suffered from the cuts. So why should the people of Greece suffer like this due to the mistakes of a past government? You will be told time and time again that the other Eurozone countries who made cuts would be angry if Greece is given an easier ride. But maybe Germany's policy of ordered liberalism is not the only way to keep Europe together. Do debts have to be paid to the detriment of innocent people in the country, or do we want a united Europe based on solidarity? Germany has the biggest cash mountain in the EU. It has the biggest responsibility to show leniency.
And now for this week's News in Brief. Last week, a Pegida rally took place in Leipzig, one of East Germany's larger cities. There were about 800 people there protesting against Germany taking in refugees and asylum seekers. There were said to be about the same amount of people protesting against the movement and even more police officers keeping both the groups away from each other. Lutz Bachmann, the leader of Pegida, spoke to the crowd and said that his movement would be starting to look for political candidates to run for government elections, starting in 2016. He said that they would be starting to campaign for positions in Baden-Württemberg, Rhineland-Palatinate, Saxony-Anhalt, and Mecklenburg-Westphal-Merania. Bachmann spoke to the press later, and he said that he would not be using the name Pegida for their political party. In the past, reports have been made that accuse the German police force for being abusive to refugees, using racial profiling, and having links to neo-Nazi groups. The United Nations has even written a condemning report against the German police force for using institutional racism. The Interior Ministry of Germany spoke out this week saying that many of these complaints against the police were unwarranted and that the people did not have a full picture of the situation and that there was no problem to address. A Left Party member who helped draft the questions for the government to answer was not happy with the results. He felt that the government was just pushing him and the questions about the police abusing authority out of the way. The Council of Europe's Human Rights Commissioner said that the first step for German institutions like the police that they need to recognize that there's an existence of racism, and only then can an effective measures be taken to combat it. A hot sunny day in the state of Rhineland-Palatinate turned into a tragedy when a devastating storm emerged. It was almost 100 degrees Fahrenheit, about 36 degrees Celsius, when strong winds, described by locals as a tornado, formed and started destroying housing, farms, and other building and infrastructure. Trees were torn down, roofs were blown off houses. It was reported that people were trapped in their homes when they began to collapse, and many people were injured during the storm. Fortunately, no deaths were found caused by this disaster. Over 10 million euros in damage was said to be caused, but the residents and the emergency services have already been mobilized and are starting to clean up and rebuild. Berlin holds a fashion event that is known far and wide for being a trend-setting place in what's to come in the world of fashion. This week, the Berlin Fashion Week shows us what will be hot in the spring and summer of the year 2016. The show started this past Tuesday, and many of the biggest fashion designers show up to give a glimpse of their new items. Overall, about 3,000 different fashion designers and labels participate in the over 200 plus events that go on throughout the city. Because of Berlin's bohemian and artistic nature, many of these designers focus on green and ethical fashions, as well as functional and large-size items. The show ended on Saturday, and again, more than 200,000 buyers, traders, media personnel, and fashion lovers showed up in Germany's capital city. The next Fashion Week will be in January of 2016. East Germany, in general, is not one of the hottest places economically to be right now. A new demographic study came out this past Wednesday that says it projects that a large part of the East German population will migrate elsewhere during the next 15 years. This study says that it expects that throughout the former East, the states will have over 500,000 people fewer by the year 2030. The biggest reason is a shrinking economy, even with the monetary help from the West trying to even out the country. People are leaving the East, which makes it that much harder to succeed, forcing even more to go. Local infrastructure, paid through community taxes, will be harder to maintain. Healthcare and education will also suffer, as even fewer doctors and teachers are going to move to these regions. All of this is on top of the fact that the age of the average citizen continues to rise, which will be even more of an economic strain on the system.
That was this week's News in Brief. If you fancy getting a bi-weekly update from us with the best of This Week in Germany, sign up to our email newsletter in the sidebar at thisweekingermany.de. Now moving on to our second story. If you live in Germany, you've probably heard of the political party Alternative für Deutschland, or AfD for short. They're a eurosceptic party which has been compared to UKIP in Britain, America's Tea Party, or even extreme right-wing parties. Perhaps that last one is a little bit unfair, but still, skeptics have long said the AfD is populist and provides an acceptable face for xenophobic right-wingers. The party has denied that label for years, but then came the shock this week. Bernd Lucke, the founding member, or a founding member of the party, decided to leave. The reason, in his words, the party's anti-Islamic and anti-immigration views. There's been a power struggle at the top of the party for several months. It was during this that Lucke lost a leadership election. The struggle within the party is between two main factions. Those who are focused on cutting or removing the European Union's power in Germany on the one side, free market liberals. On the other, those who hold strong conservative stances on issues such as immigration. Bernd Lucke was in the former camp, a free market liberal, who was upset at the growing conservatism in his party. So, here's what matters. The AfD has been growing in popularity since it was founded in 2013. Lucke's departure can be seen as the AfD endorsing the national conservative side of the party over the economically liberal strand. They don't have any seats in parliament yet, but they do have 41 seats across some of Germany's state governments. The country and its parliament, the Bundestag, is currently seen as generally socially liberal and friendly to the European Union. Even the current conservative CDU party is seen as reasonably liberal. Its Berlin group is debating whether to support gay marriage, and so far most of its members seem to be in favour. But the AfD would change that if they got into parliament. They could perhaps drag the current conservatives more to the right in order to stop losing votes. Politics would certainly become more divisive. So, the departure of Bernd Lucke from the Alternative für Deutschland party is not as simple as it first sounds. It could be the first milestone in an increasingly conservative Germany. But now it's time to move on to something completely different. Coming up right now, it is...
Ooh, Destination Germany, one of my favorite parts of the episode, where we get to show you something really cool in Germany that you might not know about, or even if you did know about it, we'll get to tell you all the details about it that really make you want to go and visit it.
Even if you know all about it, we're going to tell you anyway.
But what matters is that we're going to show you that Germany is an interesting and exciting place to visit. Also, if you like all the destinations that we talk about, you can always go to our website, thisweekingermany.de, and we'll have photos of all the destinations there.
Yes, loads and loads of cool photos, so check those out. Last time on Destination Germany, we were in the city of Berlin. You might have heard of it. It's kind of a big deal. And we went to a museum with some pretty heavy and serious subject matter. It was the topography of terror close to Potsdamer Platz, which is in the city centre, which is the location of the old headquarters of the Nazi secret police force, the Gestapo and the SS. They excavated the site well, not the Gestapo and the SS didn't, but the authorities excavated the site in the late 80s, and it turned into an outdoor open-air museum. You can walk along the side of the Berlin Wall and also learn about the history and atrocities from the Nazi era. They even have a specially redesigned museum which has a large indoor exhibit area, as well as special exhibitions and a documentation library, I should say. Okay, Rob, so what kind of destination do you have for us this week?
Well, this week's destination is going to be quite interesting, and more shows you just how great traveling in Germany can be. There are many great places in this country where you can find and enjoy, and it might be a little bit difficult picking out exactly where you want to go just because there's so many options. But there's an organization like UNESCO World Heritage Committee, which might be helpful, and it will let you narrow down your choices by giving you a list of places that they have singled out as being special in a cultural way or having physical significance. Before last week, Germany had 39 active World Heritage sites, and as of now, in July 2015, they have another. The newest addition to this list of great places to visit in Germany are Hamburg's Speicherstadt, Stadt and the Kantorhaus
districts. It's all... I thought you did very well. It's always great when Germany is recognized by UNESCO for some of its locations here, because it really goes to show that some of the places that they have been here long through the past, and that still exists today, make this country a very interesting place to visit and to be in, to live in as well.
UNESCO is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. It helps conserve locations in different countries to ensure that they stay around for people to enjoy for years to come. An example, we had the Völklingen Ironworks that we talked about recently on Destination Germany. And also something that you might know is the Cologne Cathedral.
It's actually Cologne, but never mind. You really make it difficult for yourself when writing these scripts, don't you? You choose the most difficult places to pronounce. And now these two districts in Hamburg have recently been added to the list. So, Rob, maybe you could tell me what is culturally special about these places?
Well, Hamburg's warehouse city, that is the Speicherstadt.
Yes.
Haha, okay. And the old business district is the Kantorhausviertel. Viertel. Thank you. They've both been added, but they count as one location or one World Heritage Site. And they're both physically beautiful with the architecture from the late 18th, early 1900s. And they have meant a lot to both Germany and the world.
Okay, so if you start with the Speicherstadt, tell me what makes this warehouse district special. Because if you go to any other city, their warehouse district might just be like a small, ugly-looking place in the corner of the town. So what makes this place really special?
The Speicherstadt, it means like warehouse city. It's in Hamburg, and it's a group of gigantic warehouses that are right on the waterfront of the Elbe River, which flows in from the North Sea into Hamburg. And Hamburg is a huge port city, and because of this, tons of ships take goods in and out of the harbor, so they need these somewhere to store all the goods that they have. And there's a group of islands right when you come down the river, and here they have built these vast warehouses. If you want to know something cool, Speicherstadt is the largest warehouse district in the world where there are foundations where the buildings were built on these timber pile foundations. It's like huge oak logs that are standing on end that keep the buildings out of the water, though you can't see any of that now.
So it's just a group of old warehouses? Huh? Why should anyone want to visit these places?
Well, the warehouse city now has two functions. One is it's still being used to store goods, and as of 2005, the company handled 1/3 of the world's carpet production, as well as having vast quantity of the world's supply of things like cacao, coffee, tea, spices, and electronics. The other function is it's starting to focus more on being a tourist attraction. New museums have been added to bring in visitors alongside one of the biggest reasons to go there is its beauty. The layout of the structures is huge neo-Gothic red brick buildings that sit right on the river.
Okay, and the Kantorhaus district is different, right? It's not the same place.
Yeah, the area is really close to the warehouse district, so visitors can see both of them on the same day. And there are a lot of very unique buildings in this old business district. It went through some tough times in the past. The Great Hamburg Fire and the cholera epidemic made it pretty tough for this area, but it was replanned and redesigned at the beginning of the 1900s. Many famous architects and designers came together, and they decided on what sort of amazing buildings they should add. And during the Second World War, a few took some damage, but a lot of them were pretty much still structurally stable, and some of them were pretty much not even touched at all. So the ones that had some problems were restored with their original design, which is nice. One of the ones that I liked the most was called the Chili House. It's a 10-story building that's in the style of brick expressionism. with some wonderful angles that you won't see anywhere else in the world.
That's expressionism. That's an English word, by the way. Sorry, I tease you too much. I tease you too much. Yeah. But we have had people writing in say that they love your pronunciation of these places. So that's what they listen for. So yeah, we're giving you bad pronunciation week in, week out, and also from me as well. I don't pronounce everything right. So you have genuinely left me wanting to go and see these World Heritage sites that are located in Hamburg. So do you have any kind of last tips for anyone who wants to go there?
Well, a couple things I read I want to share with people is, first, Hamburg has a lot of canals and waterways going through it. So think about looking at these areas by taking a cruise or taking joining a tourist group, and so you can get around by a water bus. Also, these places are really nice to go by day because all the museums are open and can have lunch in the cafes or go to a restaurant. But you should definitely go back in the evening because it is really famous for how it's lit at night. And it's pretty much a reason to go there just for that, to see what it looks like at night.
Well, that's it for this week's Destination Germany. Make sure you check out our website, thisweekingermany.de, and we'll show you some of the great architecture that we've told you about this week in Hamburg's Speicherstadt and the Kontorhaus districts. Next up, our German of the Week section, where we put the spotlight on a prominent person from this week's news. Could be a German citizen or even a foreigner who we deem an honorary German, who's had an effect, for better or for worse, on German culture, society, or politics.
We had 3 people that are being honored as this episode's German of the Week. They are not named, but we can call them heroes for their heroic actions that they took this past week to stop a man from his homicidal rampage in southern Germany. On Friday, a man was driving his car when he open-fired with a gun and he shot from his window multiple times. He hit and killed an elderly woman as well as a passing cyclist. Both were pronounced dead on the scene. A man in a tractor and a pedestrian were also shot at, but escaped unharmed. This gunman went into a gas station and threatened employees and customers there. While he laid a pistol on the counter just for a moment, one of the cashiers grabbed the gun and ran away from the store with it. When the gunman went after his gun, he was tackled and subdued by 2 mechanics working at the gas station until the police arrived. It's thanks to these 3 employees that took action when action was needed that no one else was hurt in this attack.
And they were, I should say, our Germans of the week, and that brings us to the end of episode number 80. We are now just as old as a very old grandmother. In terms of days, episodes rather than actual years. 80 years would be a bit much. But as you can tell, we dedicate loads of our free time to making this episode every single week, and we thank you very much for your support in all of our social media. You can find the links on our website in thisweekingermany.de. What kind of links do we have there, Rob?
We've got all sorts of good links on our website. Mostly you can find our social media links there, which is nice. Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, that kind of thing. Also, you can find a link to donate to us, which we would very much appreciate.
Yes, keep our server and domain costs and everything like that. So thank you very much however you want to support us, but, the free way is to rate us on iTunes, give us 5 stars. That would be fantastic. That gets us more listeners, and we love that. We do this for you. This Week in Germany is produced by me, Daniel Winter. It is written and presented by myself and Rob Bishop. Thank you so much for listening of the past 80 episodes, and hopefully we'll have more than 80 more episodes to come. We'll be back in 7 days with yet more of This Week in Germany.